Hi everyone, Jasmine here for today's episode of the LVLing Up podcast, brought to you by LVL UP Consulting. And I always say how honoured I am to have today's guest. And I am very honoured to have Nat Hodges from Outliers on the line with me today. And I will allow you, Nat, to share what you do at
No worries.
Outliers and your business story to date, which is very interesting. But I have been dying to ask you, the name Outliers is
Yes.
also the name of one of my favorite books ever by Malcolm
Yep.
Gladwell. Is that an accident or is that on purpose?
No, it was an accident. It was actually an accident. Yeah. Yep. I get it asked a lot, was it inspired by Malcolm Gladwell's work? And it wasn't. It was yeah, it just happens to line up that way.
Have you read the book?
I have read the book and I loved it. The hockey story still stands out to me. And the lawyers in New York, the Jewish lawyers in New York, those two stories still stand out.
I know. I always think of it. And I definitely love the whole 10,000 hours thing that he talks about, particularly given I have a birthday in January. So I feel like
Okay.
For anyone
You're
who
ahead of
doesn't
the
know what
rest.
we're talking about, read Outliers
Yeah.
and then come and see Nat at Outliers. But tell us all about Outliers. What do you do?
Cool. So Outliers is a interdisciplinary development company dedicated to the lives of high functioning people. Now, they can be complex high functioning or very achiever based high functioning. So that lands me in the world of a mix of personal development and business development. And the way I got there was years and years to dial it down to get that simple. As I'm sure you know, things kind of work and evolve. So, Jess, where would you like me to start? Do you want me to talk about the current business or my story?
Why don't we start with your story? Because I know, spoiler alert, I love saying that, that there is totally different discipline, bit of exercise science worked into this. So take us back there.
Okay, cool. So let's start. So I'm a country kid, grew up in the country. So I grew up 3 hours west of Dubbo, in a very, very small town called Walgett. My parents moved me to Ballina, just down there. I'm in Brisbane now, just down the road to Ballina. For my school life, they didn't want me to go to school out there. It was pretty rough. So I went to school and I was a really just cruisy kid, like cruisy beach kid. And then getting to finishing high school, and I was always into I did quite well actually in my high school sort of certificates, but it was that classic, and that could be really good if you tried kind of thing. But I did have a bit of a natural tact for academics, which kind of, leads me into the next part. Experienced some early trauma when I was 16. So I lost my dad to suicide when I was 16. And so I channeled that into, basically I was playing footy, training in the gym, and I loved studying and learning. So I just kind of, what seemed healthy then was actually denial and reflection, but we all go through that kind of stuff. So channeled my energy into academics and found myself at university and absolutely loved it. So I studied exercise physiology as my undergrad. When I moved into my postgrad, I started a couple different things. So I looked at hamstring strain injury, but only on one leg. So I could only talk to you if you only had one injury.
Are they different?
Yeah. Yes, there's a big difference between bilateral and unilateral hamstring strain.
There you go.
Who would have knows, right? And then I moved into looking at something called profile of mood states. So POMS, profile of mood states, we're looking at what mood were you in with a training injury and then trying to run. So we were looking at a multifactorial kind of situation there. And so I was doing a lot of weightlifting at that time, a lot of study, a lot of research, and I was tutoring and lecturing at QUT as well. So I was very, very busy, and I loved being busy. Partly coming back to that, like busyness I didn't have to look at my emotional side if I was busy. So I just kept working, studying, training over and over and over, which will come back around again. It did get a bit interesting. I did have this I felt a weird kind of split inside me, teaching people that were my age or just a bit younger or even older, going, I've just been in the education system the whole time, kind of protected, honestly, by the education system. And I didn't feel I had real runs on the board. So I jumped out and started my own business. And that was the first, so I had a little training studio that was dedicated to development and training. So I'd run workshops, etc. And a lot of my story is really lucky with professors that I had, lucky with the network.
Have you not read Outliers? There is no luck.
Yeah. True. Yes. Probabilities and chance. Probabilities, we'll go with that. So yeah, had really great professors that really nurtured me. I met a lot of people from the QAS and a lot of performance developers and people that were just kind of good thinkers, good doers, and I was kind of nurtured by that. So when I started my business, I was lucky in the fact that I'd never really experienced much, what would you call it? Like much inner critic. I didn't really focus on what other people were doing. I was really quite insular. Like I was just focused on what I was doing. It took me till about 23, 24 until I started to realize that people personally really struggle with things like internally. So, you know, I had this kind of gift of some great mentors. I was very inwardly focused. I just did my thing and I had a great time. So started that, and for about 3 years, 22 to 25, it was really weird as I couldn't do anything wrong. Like it was not essentially me, but like there was a trend of the strength sports kind of, you know, the CrossFit powerlifting kind of thing.
Yeah.
So I caught that. And if you were in the game doing that, everyone was winning. It was so crazy. So we really rode the wave of the gym culture and the training culture. And then I had the development side on that as well. So it was funny. My now fiance, recent fiance, I met her. She started training at one of my gyms. Oh, thank you. I ended up having a couple of them, and we often talk about it now. She goes, "Excuse the dogs in the background." She goes, "You had the coolest, most kind of, you know, different kind of thing going from the outside looking in, but when I was in it, I thought it was terrible. I was like, it's not really going anywhere, you know." Yeah. So like we had a few locations and we had some good membership base, and I think I had 12 staff, but I was like, I'm not really feeling it, you know, just completely removed from the reality of it. Yeah, it was crazy.
Have you ever drilled down into why you had that perception? Is it just because you saw all the nooks and crannies? Like, what made you feel that way?
Yeah. So it all come to a head. I did a bit of I went to Hawaii, Boston, and New York. I did a bit of America trip, partly holiday, partly catch up with some people that were helping me out, mentors and stuff. And I had this thought over there. I'm like, I reckon I'm going to come back into the gym and I'm not going to want to be there. And sure enough, you know, as would have it, I walked in there, did the first week. I was like, good to see everyone again. This is great. And then all of this kind of, I'm a really interior type person. So all of this kind of motivation drive I had for it, it was just gone. And I couldn't see myself there anymore. So I sold everything. Yeah.
Wow. How quick was the turnaround from you, getting back from the States to selling everything?
A few months, it was all done and dusted really fast.
Wow. And
Yeah.
just before we go on to the next chapter, so
Yeah.
you'd started this business, gyms. How many sites did you say you
Yeah.
had?
We had 3 by the end of it.
Three
Yeah.
sites, 12 staff. So you've grown. How quick was that growth for you?
3 years. So we broke 2 commercial leases in that because we outgrew them so fast.
That's,
Yeah.
Incredible. What
It was
was
great.
that?
Yeah.
Was that overwhelming? Was it exhilarating? What sort of feelings did you have during that process? So you're still mid-20s at this stage, right?
Yeah, I was a baby, honestly. I was from 22 to 25. So I didn't have a clue what I was doing.
Wow.
Like not a clue. I had one of my clients come up to me and he goes, you're registered for GST, right? I was like, no. And
Yes.
I was like, what's GST? literally. And he's like, well, let me just talk you through some things. And I was well above the bracket. And so just flying by the seat of my pants, like, and it when I sold it, the sale didn't go anywhere near to plan. Like I brokered a friend into one of the spaces. So I just kind of like handballed it off to him.
Mm-hmm.
The main site, which is at Eagle Farm, which was quite a big premises, we actually built the whole internal of it. It was a beautiful space. That sale completely collapsed and failed. It was really bad. Yeah, it was.
What happened?
Yeah, well, we got the 2 buyers. They were really keen. They were a partnership. They went in. They paid the deposit into my account, into the escrow lawyer's account. That was all good. I was like, oh, these guys this is legit. This is great. And essentially, I just vendor financed it over 24 months. So I was like, yeah, I'm going to take a break, get paid for 24 months, and figure out my next move. That didn't go anywhere near to plan. So within 3 weeks of them being in there, they were taking a wage out of my money out of my business account. So they started drawing away straight away. The staff that were in there were really unhappy. 2 left, and then the whole thing capitulated to nothing. Like, yeah, people were coming in, taking their equipment back. Like, it was a full calamity. It was the worst thing that could have happened is exactly what happened.
Oh no.
Yeah. So we had a meeting booked for settlement for everything, and these 2 guys didn't show up. And my lawyer was like, "This is a very big red flag. You've got 2 options here. You either take the gym back," which I did not want to do. "You either take the gym back, or you ride out this very risky situation." And so I said, "Look, I booked a meeting and said, guys, you missed the meeting, you've broken contract, I'm going to have to take the gym back." Yeah. And so I took the gym back, and by the time I had taken it back, and everyone was so unsettled and disrupted, of course, that they were looking at their options to move their businesses elsewhere, subcontractors, etc., which they did, which of course, self-preservation. So by the time I got the gym back, it was an empty shell of nothing, but still every expense. Yeah.
Man.
So it was absolute chaos.
Wow. Okay. So you're an academic. You then go into business. It goes quite well, but you decide,
yeah, flies.
There's something else for me. There's something else for me. I'm going to sell all of this, thinking you could maybe move on to that next chapter. No, sir, there is problem.
Yep.
But
yes.
I'm assuming that all resolved, and then eventually you do move on to that next chapter. What happened?
Yeah. So what was happening in the background of all this was I probably was doing 10 hours probably on the floor max a week. The rest was kind of BD and some other things. Mm-hmm. The 10 hours I did have were all business owners, and they were all fitness business owners. Mm-hmm. And they would come and many of them said, "No, we come, a lot of our values, we just come talk to you. We train anywhere. We just really like talking to you. Have you ever thought about doing some kind of consulting?" I was like, "Absolutely not. I never want to do that." And my mentor at the time had been kind of prodding me for about 9 months, going, "Hey, come help run some of my rooms with me, some of my clients." And I was just like, "Nah, dude, I'm not interested. Like, I'm a gym guy. This is what I'm trained in. This is what I do." And so when it all collapsed, and I didn't get any grace period because all the funds that were accumulated were just cleaned up by all the expenses. So essentially back to zero. Yeah. So I didn't have really any other options. And my mentor at the time had to go to Sydney, and he's like, "Look, I have a room this weekend. I've got back-to-back workshops. You're going to have to run them because I'm away and I don't have anyone else." I'm like, "Dude, I don't know what I'm doing." And he goes, "You run a business, just start, like, I don't know, just tell a story or something." That was literally my training. And I was like, what's the worst that can happen?
I mean, that's terrifying.
It's terrifying, absolutely terrifying. They weren't big workshops, 10 to 20 people. And I was like, I'm just going to go in here and just, if they got questions, I'm just going to answer them honestly, and I'm just going to share honest stories. Mm-hmm. And so I did the whole weekend, and I remember calling Tim, his name was at the time, and I'm laying on his floor because we had this office, beautiful. Like, he had this office which had like a delivery room in the middle. So I was upstairs laying on the floor, like, "Dude, I'm so exhausted. I can't. What just happened?" So I just did, and if you've ever done, I'm sure you have, when you do delivery from stage, if you're not fit for it, God, it's just exhausting.
Oh yeah. Even when you are.
Yeah, exactly. So I did 2 days of that, and it was really, really fun and really exciting, and I really kind of enjoyed it, even though I'd never had an issue with public speaking. I just didn't want to do that. And they really, really loved it, and surprising enough to me, they loved it, and wanted to do some more work with me. So I was like, "Oh, all right." So I never really wanted to do this. It just happened.
It just happened. Okay. And then, and is, the rest history then? That sort of became Outliers?
Yeah, well, so from there, the gym chapter closed. Tim he handed me basically a percentage of the company and said, "Here's, you've done really well. Have this, come build this thing with me." And that was the next, what are we out here? 20. Yep, that was the next 4 years, 25 to 29 was strictly, it was called Next Level. So our consulting company was called Next Level. So close.
We were meant to connect.
Yeah, and no ease as well, like yours. Like it's if you Google nextlevel.com.au, you'll see Tim, my ex-business partner. Yeah, that's the business I helped build. It's the branding is so similar.
Oh my, we actually didn't know this before today.
Yeah.
So this
Yeah.
definitely feels like stars colliding. Okay,
It's
well,
so similar.
that's pretty cool then. So
Yeah.
4 years you're doing this. And
Yeah.
before we go on to this chapter,
Yeah.
for anyone, there seems to be a theme when I talk to these amazing business owners, and they say things like, "Oh, it was luck,"
Okay.
but it turns out that it's not just right place at the right time. They actually had built the infrastructure, and it sounds like you talk a lot about having good mentors around you and people that were there to help you. And if Tim didn't throw you into the deep end, then you wouldn't be where you are today.
Exactly. Yeah.
But there'll be people watching this going, "Well, how did you find Tim?"
Yeah, that's a really good call. That's a great question. So it's a funny story actually. No one's asked me that for a long time. I was walking into Chermside Shopping Centre car park, and I saw this was before the Mustang got to Australia. So it was I saw an American muscle car Mustang type thing, and it just stood out back then. I would have been 23. What am I now? 31. 8 years, and it had next level coaching on the side, and I thought it said next level cheerleading. Just off first glance, I was like, man, this cheerleader game, someone's making money. What is happening here? And then so he anyway, I just recognized the car, go and do my shopping, and as I'm walking out, there's a guy walking around, and I just made the link. I'm like, I reckon that's the owner of that car. Just good presence, ex-military. So Tim's ex-military. He's got a big presence about him. Big square jaw, big shoulders, really tall. So he's had, he dressed really well. And I was like, I reckon that's the owner of that car. And it was.
He's the cheerleading guy.
I was like, yeah, that's the cheerleading guy. Literally, that's what I was like. I was like, that's the cheerleading guy. What's going on here? And so I just remembered it. The next time I was at Chermside, I ran into him and said, hey, I just bumped into him. And I go, mate, do you own that car out there? And he's like, yeah. I'm like, what do you do? He's like, I'm a consultant. I was like, oh, weird. I thought it said cheerleading. And so that's how we met. And then we went and got sushi and had a chat, and he showed me some things. I was personal training and at uni at that time. So I was PTing and at uni.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, what do you want to do? And I was like, oh, I think I want to own a gym. And then that's how we just kept working together.
That is brilliant. And anyone that does watch my podcast, you'll know that, as this theme emerges of, meeting the right people, the same thing is said every time. You just go out there and you meet the people. They're not going to come to you. You got to literally tap them on the shoulder and say, is that your car? That is how opportunities happen. So don't be afraid. Even the introverts amongst us, there are ways to reach out and connect with those people. So just hopefully that story there has inspired you to do that if you haven't already.
Always just go do it. I always tell people, if you see it, feel it, go say it. If you see something and you feel it, just go and approach.
I love it. All right. So you've met Tim, and so you're in business with Tim after this one weekend of exceptional facilitation. You're now in business, and you do that for 4 years. And is that sort of on that one-on-one, like coaching or consulting? What sort of work would you guys do?
So the agency we started off with, I was running personal development for PTs out of my business. So that I had the training side and the development side.
Yeah.
And Tim said, what about if we get them all together and I come in and we both do a presentation? I'm like, yeah, sure. We were wrapping up anyway. And I was like, it'll be a perfect last session. So we went in there, Tim did his thing, and it was very executive and strong and corporate, semi-militarized, but he has a very grounded kind of facilitation. So he can wrap up a room like that. He's great. And so they were all like, this is awesome. And I would come in and kind of add a lot. I would bring the kind of academic side, you would call it. Mm-hmm. So Tim would go really strong. I would come in and support it. We just had this nice little flow. And from that room, I think it was 25 people in that room. I think 20 of them were like, how do we get more of this? And Tim off the cuff goes, oh, we have this program called Level 1. It starts in 2 weeks. We didn't have a thing. We didn't have a single thing. We didn't know what we're doing. Tim's like, yeah, we've got this thing called Level 1. And it's in 2 weeks' time. And people are like, yeah, sweet. How much is it? Tim's like, $1,200. Yeah, it's $1,200. It's 8 weeks, just off the cuff like this. And I'm like, I'm just going to go along with this. And so Yeah, we ran level 1 week to week for 8 weeks. It was 8 sessions, and we made the sessions up an hour before, just because he was so busy and I was so busy. Like, we're just going to have to come up with something on the fly.
This is
So
amazing. Okay, this is hot tip number 2 for the viewers.
go for it, Jess.
Do not let perfection get in the way of progress. If an opportunity is right in front of you, go for it.
Yeah, this is the least perfect thing ever. Yeah.
But
And
it worked, and you had this organic plan before you even had dreamed up the concept.
Yep, it worked. People got great results in their personal lives and their professional lives. And then we created a level 2, and they all went on to level 2. And it just didn't stop from there. Like,
wow,
it just didn't stop. Our model was, we would do 4 big summits a year. So every quarter we'd do a summit. No paid marketing. We'd probably get between 100 and 150 people to each. And we'd sell into our flowing programs off the back of that. So people would be in 2 and 3, then we'd resell number 1, we'd move them up the ladder. Summit again. Yeah, it was insane.
How did you do that without any paid advertising?
Oh, blood, sweat, and tears, mate. It was so brutal. Like, we worked around the clock. And it was fun, but I did burn. After 3 years, I experienced real burnout. Not just like I'm a bit tired, like, 4 weeks in bed kind of thing. Yeah. So it's too much. But we were just riding the hype train.
Yeah. So you got from this hype of gyms and CrossFit and all of that taking off. You then go into this consulting space, and it's sort of taking off. It ends in this burnout. Was that the end of your partnership with Tim, or did something happen?
No, well, I was during the gyms, I went back and studied psychology as well. So I was doing that. And so I had this really nice mix. And so during the first 3 years with Tim, it was like a year was kind of, the first year was a bit all over the place. Tim didn't really know what he wanted to do with me. And I was just happy to be doing something different. Mm-hmm. So then the next 3 years was like, okay, we committed, we know our model, we're going to go for it. And how we did it was honestly just the kind of old school way. We'd just drive around Brisbane, going to meetings. We'd just get on the phones, and all we did was either book mini workshops with people, set up mini workshops at like cafes and people's boardrooms. And we just started to build our list like that. It was really old school.
That's great.
Yeah, and so
I think that's the third tip. Not that there's, we need to hit a number here. But if you are watching this and you're thinking, oh, how do you grow your business? That is a theme that comes up. You have got to put in the groundwork. You have got to, as I say, hustle. You've got to get on the phone. You've got to get in front of people, because they don't know they don't know what they don't know. And sometimes, you can put a little Facebook ad in, but that's not going to move the needle. You've got to do lots of things. And putting in the effort is definitely part of that. It doesn't just happen. There's no luck.
Well, that's perfect. What you said there is exactly, we used to say it all the time, what's going to push the needle forward? Like, that's what we said. And it'd always be like, pick up the phone and call someone, re-engage a client, re-engage with someone who has stopped working with you, and book follow up with something. Like, it was, we kept it really, really simple.
Absolutely. And when I say to people, if you don't have the time, hire someone. Hire someone to do your pipeline management, who can do all of that for you, with some oversight from you. So it is really important to be able to do that. Okay, so where to from here? What happened?
So we had a great time. We ended up honestly, it was so much. We just had a lot of fun, and I think that the fun and play rubbed off on the clients, as well as the kind of sincerity. And we just kept pushing. We did a work trip to LA. So we went to LA.
Wow.
And Tim and I were doing a little bit of filming over there and some other things. And we met this young lady by the name of Amanda Bucci. Mm-hmm. And Amanda Bucci, we just met her in the gym, in Gold's Gym in Venice Beach, like the mecca of the gym. Yeah. So we met her and we get chatting, and then we look at her social media, and I think she's got 500,000 followers or something. Like, she was quite popular. We didn't even know. And then the next day we go into the gym again, and we meet her boyfriend, Brian. At the time, his name was Brian. Brian was a lot more kind of receptive and open. And Brian's like, oh, I run a podcast. Do you want to be on my podcast? We're like, yeah, absolutely. So we're in LA. We're doing a podcast with Brian. Yeah. And
again, by chance, like, this all just happened.
Oh, it's so crazy. Some of the things that were happening was just nuts. finish up the podcast. And then I think Amanda got a little bit jealous that we were on, like, in a fun way. And she was like, oh, guys, do you want to be on my podcast? And we're like, okay, cool. So we're back in Australia by this time. We're on the podcast with Amanda, and mid-podcast, she goes, oh, yeah, cool. So, like, how do I work with you guys? Because we didn't realize she had this infrastructure behind her of this massive online fitness community where she was teaching, she created a certificate on how to be an online personal trainer. So not just coaching people online. If you want, do this program, we can certify you to be an online personal trainer. That was her infrastructure behind her.
Nice.
So this was the tipping point for us, is that when Amanda was on board, everything just went crazy. Like, she was our highest paying client. She had a lot of referrals. It was obviously in LA. So we do 4 trips a year back and forth.
Wow.
Yeah. So we're going between Brisbane and LA. I got so sick of the LA trip. Oh my God. Like, it sounds fun. And then you do it enough and you're like, I'm so over this 12-hour taxi ride.
Oh yeah. For anyone who has done work travel, the novelty, I think, lasts 1 or 2 trips.
Yeah.
And then all you want to be is home.
Yeah. So that's when our average retainer price after Amanda went really high, because just supply and demand. Like, we were just we had so much work on. In this time. What had happened is I took over something called the Academy, which was all the small business and personal development side. So small business under 1.5 in personal development. Tim created a product in between called Business Breakthrough, which was kind of your medium-sized business. And then we had our corporate or bigger type retainer clients. You had essentially 3 products by the end of it: Corporate, Business, Academy. And it was just on for young and old. It was just clients everywhere. Yeah, it was nuts.
Wow. So you've been throughout your whole career essentially riding this wave of exponential growth. Like, this is incredible.
Yeah. And then it all just too big, too fast for me. I'm 29 now. So I'm 31 now, but I was 29 then. I'm like, this isn't for me anymore. Since researching at uni, I did it felt like 10 years of just nonstop. I'm like, I'm done. And I checked out. So had a big parting of ways with Tim that was half nice and then half messy and then half nice again. And we're all good now. We're very good now. But it's there was just I left in you would call it a dramatic fashion. It wasn't dramatic as in throwing keyboards in anger. It was dramatic as in I need to go now. I got panicky. Yeah. So that obviously wasn't the best way to exit the business, because it just left some holes, and then assumptions were made, and et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah. Do you have any tips for people who might be feeling this today, whether it's their own business or they're in partnership with someone and they're like, look, I'm not feeling great about things. If you had your time again, what would you have done differently to exit?
So I had the right conversation. I had the honest conversation, but it was too late. I should have had it 6 months prior. So we could have, while I still had good energy in the business, we could have come up with something. But it was at the point where I had such little energy for the business that when I had the conversation, I just wanted out.
Yeah, there was no competition.
That's right. I was trying to be 2 people. I was trying to be the person that they needed because they needed it, and my true self at the same time. And I was like, I just let it go too far. So have the conversation early and make sure it's the real conversation.
So speak your truth.
Yeah, totally. And then always be open to the middle ground of, like, what I tell my clients now in a similar, if they want to transition, is organize your needs and values and wants in front of you, and then try to come up with a solution in the business that services those. You don't have to make this massive leap of faith.
Yeah, very true. You don't have to go big bang.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And a lot of the times it is a needs basis, not a wants basis. So you might need something in the business. You might need more time, different support, whatever.
Yeah, exactly. So where are you today?
Yeah. Okay. So the last 2 years, I jumped out of Next Level, and I was actually quite disillusioned with the whole development industry. I'd just done too much of it too quick. And so I just wanted something mundane. I was at that stage, I was happy just to take anything. I'll just take a job. Like, it didn't worry me. So I had a personal client who was she had a recruitment company, and it was a mess. And I said to her, Jess, hey, how about this? How about I come in, give me a 12-week project, I'll clean it up for you, I'll build some infrastructure around you, it'll be good. And she's like, that sounds amazing. So that's what I did. I basically did a project basis from there it didn't even last that long. It lasted probably 6 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
And then I was bombarded with messages from people going, can we start working together again? And I was like, I don't want to do it. I don't want to do this. I just need a break from it.
Mm-hmm.
So I had my kind of time. And what I did is because a lot of people were asking me, I popped a webinar up, just an organic webinar on Facebook. You'll laugh at this, Jazz. I popped a webinar up on Facebook, and I delivered some content that I've always wanted to deliver, but it essentially wasn't. It didn't fit the scope of Next Level, but it was really true to me.
Mm-hmm.
And so I shared it. I think I had about 25 people on the webinar. I just had so much fun, like sharing this what was really true to me.
Yes.
And same thing. About 20 out of the 25 was like, what are we doing next? And I was like, oh, here we go again. So then I started a program, and I just called the program Outliers. And I think about 12 people did it. And it was enough. I had enough money I had 4 weeks of life in me from this program. Like what I earned from the program gave me 4 weeks of life living.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, all right, I'm just going to deliver this program and figure it out as I go. I called the program Outliers, and it hasn't stopped from there.
Brilliant.
So I just called the company Outliers. Yeah.
I love it. And then who do you work with today? Is it any sort of business owner, or are you still niched into fitness?
Yeah, no. So the fitness, I still have a few gym clients, but it's definitely not my niche. I mean, I've got you would say a pretty broad niche. I'm more fit a psychographic, not a demographic. So there's a psychology that I absolutely thrive with, and it's very cocky, but I can't get it wrong when I have this psychology in front of me. So where I do my best work is typically businesses that fall under 2 million, anywhere under there, with leaders that have a colorful background and that are kind of hyper functioning. That have always here's the theme. Here's my psychograph that I work perfect with. So it's really clear. Is they have complexity management issues. So it feels like they're doing a lot of stuff all the time. Businesses, projects, kids, families, etc. They normally swing between bouts of deep focus and then wanting to withdraw from life and the world. So sometimes struggle with a core or stable identity. So it feels like their sense of self moves around a bit.
Mm-hmm.
And they crave peace. They actually want a peaceful life, but their ambition is really, really strong. So their ambition actually disrupts their peace.
Are you inside my brain right now? What's going on here?
Yeah. So that they're my people. They're outliers.
Yeah, I love this, because something I've personally struggled with for a long time, and I'm sure you've seen it all over social media, but every business that person says, pick your niche and talk to your niche, and they're a certain demographic. And I've always personally struggled with that, because
Me too.
In my work, I can work with any size business, doesn't matter how big they are. I've got corporate clients, I've got micro businesses. But you've just said something that's completely been an epiphany to me, and maybe to our viewers as well, in that it's a personality trait. It's a type of person, as opposed to the size of their business.
A demo. Yeah.
You can have startup, entrepreneurs who are exactly what you described, but their business is not worth, doesn't fit into a category.
Yep, exactly. And the only reason I like to stay small in who I work with is because I just love the agility, and I know that when we make changes, we're gonna see it pretty much immediately. So that's the only reason I pick smaller business. And I mean, even though I've worked with corporates and big companies, and you can charge very, very big retainers, and it's fine, but it's just not enjoyable for me. It's just not enjoyable for me. Yeah.
And if you're results driven, and this has just opened up a new world for me. This is fantastic. Particularly because in my work, I specialize in people who want to grow their business and become more efficient, and you've got to have that hunger to start
absolutely.
with. So it's a personality type. All right, I think you've given us look, I've lost count now. It's way more than 5. But there's lots of tips here. I think the big takeaway for me, and I've said it once, I'll say it again. You've got to put yourself out there. Tap
Yeah,
that
for sure.
person on the shoulder, ask them about their cheerleading business.
Yep.
And you work on the fly if you have to. If you keep waiting for opportunities to come to you, they won't. So be ready at all times to optimize on those opportunities and go with it.
Beautiful.
Thank you, Nat. Thank you so much for your time.
Good.
Anyone viewing this who goes, I'm high functioning, I would like some peace.
Where
can we find you?
Okay, so it's funny. I was just on a podcast before this one, and they same question, right? Where can we find you? And I said, well, look, best way, honestly, is direct. My email is just Nathaniel, Nathaniel at outliers.consulting. You'll get me direct. And my previous podcast host, she turns around and goes, "You're so old school." I'm like, "What do you mean?" She's like, "Don't you have an Instagram?" I'm like, well, no, not really. So I think people just expect to have the kind of, find me on my socials. I just haven't really caught that train yet, I suppose.
I love it. So if
just email me direct.
You didn't get that, Nathaniel at outliers.consulting. There's no .com, there's no .au, just .consulting. It's very unique and cool. I love it. And that is where you will find Nat. Of course, we will put the links to your website and whatnot on this podcast on the Level Up page, which is levelupconsulting.com.au.
Cool.
Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. We'll see you next time. And thank you, Nat, for being our special guest on Leveling Up.
No worries. Thanks for having me.
See you next time.